Our final speaker for the panel is Youssef Shazli, who will be speaking about a different kind of art space that's also a recent one. It's Zawiya Cinema.
Thank you, Shahid. Thank you, Cluster, for this very nice invitation. So I'll just present Zawiya briefly and try to stay within the context of this panel discussion. So unlike Townhouse, we are a relatively new project. We are about a year and 8 months old. Zawiya was launched in March 2014 in Cinema Odeon in downtown Cairo. So the very basic idea of the project is that we wanted to create an art house cinema, a cinema that is operating on a daily basis and that is focusing mainly on films that do not really have access to the Egyptian cinema commercial market. So the idea was basically to have a space that would be able to run daily, as opposed to having a small festival or that kind of thing that we used to do. So we operate one of the screens in Odeon Cinema, which is a 3-screen cinema. Odeon used to be one big, like one single screen cinema that was later divided into 3 halls. We operate the smallest halls of the cinema, which is a 175 seating hall. It is when we had the idea of doing this project, we were basically looking at potential cinemas, and Odeon was actually the first cinema that we looked into. We quickly realized that it could work for us, because basically one of the hall that we end up choosing is kind of isolated from the 2 other ones, leading to a space that was kind of left out, which used to serve as a second cafeteria for the cinema, but was not really used. And this space led to 2 emergency exit doors that were locked, completely locked and not used at all. So we quickly realized that this had great potential for us if we wanted to have our own space that is separate from the other 2 screens, and that we could manage it differently. So once we were able to come to an agreement with the cinema, we did minor renovations to the space, and we ended up having our own cafeteria with our own entrance, which used to be the emergency exits, and our own ticket booth. So this is the cafeteria of the cinema, which I talked about, which used to be completely left out. What's interesting here is that the cafeteria leads to an alley, which is a bit similar to the Townhouse area. It's an alley it's a pedestrian alley. There are no cars, and there is a big ahwa there. What's interesting is that when we came into the space, and then we said to the owners that we wanted to have our own entrance and that we would not use their main box office entrance, their first reaction was to discourage us from doing so, because they felt that the alley that is in front of our space is kind of not really chic enough, or not really, will not work with our own audience, and that the kind of clientele that stays on the ahwa is, all the working class workers of downtown, and that this would not really work for us. But one of the really interesting things that ended up happening is that actually most of our audience, while waiting for the film to when they come early and so on, they all stay on this ahwa, and there is a very interesting relationship between the external and the internal, our own cafeteria and the ahwa cafeteria. We quickly became very close. We became friends with the ahwa owner. We have a very good relationship with them, and what actually happened when I'm gonna talk more about that, but there was a risk of us being kicked out of the cinema, and we had announced that we were leaving, and we let the owners of the Ahwa know that we were leaving, and they were very disappointed, and they were trying to find, trying to tell us I mean, trying to find solutions that they didn't want to let us go, because basically there was a very healthy relationship going on. We needed more space to accommodate our audience because our cafeteria is quite small, and they had a lot of I mean, a lot more people coming to their ahwa before the films. So when we came into the cinema in March 2014, we had 6 months lease, which was kind of a trial period. We of course felt that this was very little time for us to try to prove ourselves and try to prove that this project could work, but this was our only chance, so we decided to take it. The relationship between us and the cinema owners is very interesting and developed in a very interesting way throughout the last year and a half. When we started, there was a very high risk for us to leave after the 6 months, and this is what we were told after the 3rd or 4th month, that we would not continue in that space because basically we needed some time to kick off and to let people know about the project and see where it would take us. And then, fortunately enough, the 5th and 6th month of the project, we doubled our numbers, and we had a strong program which enabled us to really be there on a bit of another level, and they were completely surprised by the attendance at this time. And so when we came back to negotiate, we were able to get another 1-year deal. Which also has to be negotiated again now, but the relationship between us and the cinema owners, and the comparison between our own screen, which we manage very differently from the 2 other screens, I find it very interesting, because throughout time, I mean, there were the 2 screens that they were operating are being operated on a commercial level, so they were doing okay, but not very good numbers, but also numbers that are better than what we were doing. But with time, we got closer to them, closer and closer, and until a certain point where we were doing much better than both of their screens combined. So the relationship quickly changed. It became they were much more willing to listen to us, much more willing to consider our demands when we had some, and so I find it to be very interesting, like this relationship between us and them. This is just a quick note on how we started this project. The Zawiya builds on years and years of work on another European festival, a panorama of the European film, which is a European film festival that the MIF, Mr. International Films, the company, the mother company of Zawiya and Panorama, started in 2004 and started running annually since 2009, and a festival that's been getting bigger and bigger with time. And so this was our main motivation in 2014. We felt that, okay, maybe now it's time to do something a bit bigger and have a permanent space. This is basically Zawiya, the backbone of Zawiya. It's our relationship with 3 main stakeholders. Mr. International Films, which is the mother company of Zawiya. I don't think that this project would have been possible without them because of their strong their strong position in the cinema industry in Egypt. I don't think we would have been able to come to an agreement with Cinema Odeon, for example, if it wasn't for them. I don't think we would have been able to have the kind of relationship we have with censorship and the public institutions of Egyptian Film Center if it wasn't for them. New Century is the owner of Cinema Odeon. It's a big film cinema production and distribution company that also owns a lot of cinemas across the country. So this is who we deal with on a daily basis for the cinema, and a commercial bank, which is our main sponsor and which I don't think we would have also been able to do the project without, because even though we have a business model that is mainly focusing on a box office and a ticket booth that we would like to mainly rely on, but at least for the beginning, it would have been impossible to do that without some funding, and this is where we decided to reach to a commercial sponsor. Just quickly, some numbers. We do theatrical releases, so meaning that we try to release films on a commercial level, and as opposed to having them being screened once or twice, basically what used to happen before. What we felt was happening in the cinema scene is that mainly most of the films that we wanted to watch did not really have a proper space to see them, and when they did, it was more about one or two special screenings within a certain context, within a framework of a festival, and that we wanted to take it a bit to another level and have basically create a commercial potential behind these films. We also organize a lot of special events as opposed to our releases. Some of them are organized by us and some of them are hosted by us, so we work in partnership as well with a lot of different institutions and different groups, and a lot of them are mentioned here today and are located in downtown. So yeah, just don't skip through this. We also this was the last development of the project that happened recently, like 5 or 6 months ago. We decided to launch a distribution label, which basically tries to represent Egyptian art house films starting from their post-production phase until their release in cinemas and festivals, in TV and so on. So I just would like to talk more about our place in downtown and our place in the neighborhood. I think from the very beginning it was very clear for us that we wanted to be located in downtown. I think it was not for us. It was not about catering to the downtown neighborhood, the residents of downtown, as opposed to being more accessible to a wider range of people that were. I don't think that if we had done this project in 6th of October or in Tagamma or even in Heliopolis, it would have had the same impact that it's having now. I think the fact that we are central, we are geographically accessible, that we also are surrounded by other institutions that are similar to us and that we can work closely with, is a major factor in that. Another thing is that it was an opportunity. Downtown was an opportunity for us. There are a large number of cinemas that exist in downtown. Most of them are run down or not very well maintained. Some of them are operating, some of them are not. Those who are operating mainly are not doing very well. Most of the cinemas that are generating a lot of income are now situated in the suburbs, in 6 October, in Tagamma, in City Stars, etc. And interestingly enough, downtown, which has a very large number of cinemas, literally if you walk around downtown, every 5-10 blocks there is a cinema. So we saw that there was an opportunity for us. We went for Odeon because it was at the time it was one of the only equipped cinemas for us to go and work in, but also because we knew the owners and it was an opportunity for us to negotiate. Now we are in a very a bit of a, we don't know what. Basically, we want to expand. We want to get bigger. We want to be able to create a space where we can do much more than just watch films, and this is why we're considering moving, finding a new home that would cater to our demands more, but that's also located in downtown. So I'll just stop here and maybe later more questions.
So thank you, Youssef, and to all of the speakers.